Tolakarn, friends and foes. Welcome to a preview of the strategy map of DCI Last Alliance, with best regards from the team. First, we use a modified version of the Third Age Total War map for a couple of reasons. Alternative maps may, for example, be more correct in the geographical framework, but this map is closest to the proper map scale we are after for a 4 turns per year campaign. Likewise, the landscape is delightful, the map is stable and reliable, and it allows us to create a great game balance. We use 146 out of 199 possible regions, without the need to lock any settlements at village size, with less non-lore settlements, and the layout offers a real hard game challenge, all without suffering from stack spam. We are aware that some people will ask us to change, but this is our choice and we are happy with it, to offer you the best DCI Last Alliance experience. Now, let's move on to the map. This will be a presentation of the regions we have added, of the borders we have changed, and other tweaks of similar kind. Credit goes to Withwnar, who have made almost all map work for DCI Last Alliance. This presentation will not go into changes of settlement names or settlement sizes. That will as a rule be covered by our future faction preview videos. As some already thought of, we have started this campaign as the Kingdom of Casa Doom, or the Dwarfs. This for a reason that will become apparent as we reach the end of this video. And we will in this video move from Eriador over to the east and the Iron Hills, further south into Harad, and then back into Eriador once more. We will begin in the north of Eriador, looking at Sitchak. This is a new village, and we have added this to increase the interaction in the north of Eriador between the factions who are active here. It do mean that the settlement and region of Uyal is no longer a bottleneck region, meaning that by holding this you do not cut off the Eredluin mountains from the northern plains of Eriador and the region of Angmar. The faction that is active here is the Hillman of the North. The Hillman of the North in turn have got a new region to take care for. It is West Rudaur. West Rudaur and this area was previously a part of the same region as what is now known called East Rudaur. And instead we have made these two regions, of which East Rudaur is a little bit interesting in itself, but that rebel settlement will be looked closer at in a faction preview video. Also, you may notice that there's more green in this part of the world now, and we have added this to imply, or rather enforce, the fact that Rudaur in Sindarin means East Forest, or as I prefer to think of it, as Eastwood, because that's a bit cooler. East Rudaur has now taken a part of what in the Third Age Total War map belongs to Imladris, so this part south of the river previously belonged to Imladris, so Imladris is now a smaller region, and this has some impact on the AI behaviors. Further south we have Casa Doom, of course the starting capital of the dwarves, and Casa Doom has been slightly repositioned from where it is in the Third Age map, and presumably of more effect. We have also removed the fort that was on the western side of the city, increasing the interaction with the outside world, also making it an easier target for invasions. So the dwarven player has to be a little bit more careful. We then move north and we find here Mount Gundaban, but what is of interest is the new stronghold, and the stronghold is what we in DCI call wooden castles. They are named strongholds in DCI, and we have here Salon Bazaar, and Salon Bazaar is a Kustul name, a dwarven name, and we have added it on one hand to further enforce the fact that these mountains earlier in the age belonged to the dwarves, but of course now they have been captured by the orcs of the Misty Mountains. But also we have, by adding this settlement, created an active arena north of the mountain range. As Third Age players may remember and experience, is that most army movements otherwise were going on the southern side of the mountain range, but thanks to the addition of Salon Bazaar, we now see activity on the northern side as well. For example, if a faction capture the Grey Mountains, they no longer only have to worry about intrusions from the south, but also armies may come from the north. Thirdly, it will help the orcs of the Misty Mountains to defend themselves from their many neighbors, or rather it will help them to attack their neighbors, because the orcs of the Misty Mountains are certainly no pushovers. We move further east and we see the little addition of a common border between the Grey Mountains region and the Iron Hills region. In Third Age, the region of Erebor was a bottleneck here, cutting off this area, but now the Grey Mountains and the Iron Hills are next door neighbors, meaning that while there is no road that can go up here, or will go up there, the AI will be more concerned and hopefully often more aggressive towards the neighbor who have a region next to them. The Iron Hills, now they have to be a bit more careful in the Iron Hills, because the region that we here call Northrune and is Saunik, named Saunik in DCI, has given up a lot of land in its northern part and given it to Roman instead. this do mean that Sauron is no longer a bottleneck region, but that both the Iron Hills and indeed Roman will have to be careful for armies marching along the northern road, and you can no longer capture Sauron and expect to have a gatekeeper position. From that we move on across the Rovanian plains and through the forest of Mirkwood, as you will most know it. This is long before it was named Mirkwood. At this time it's known as Eringalen or Greenwood the Great. And of course across the Anduin River we see the Lothlorien forest, but what we are looking for here is the Brimfoldveg village. This new region is here to, plainly speaking, create more battle and a harder challenge. Much because of the fact that Brimfoldveg now prevents Thoranberg from being a bottleneck region. You can't hold Thoranberg and block off this section of the map to the north, but instead both Brimfoldveg and Thoranberg are neighboring the region of Nindalf. Nindalf, on the other hand, can still do work as a bottleneck region, and those who have good memory or are well read in the scriptures of course know that this area is what became Dagorlad during the course of this war. The battle plain is the meaning of Dagorlad, where the largest battle occurred during this war. Now Nindalf is the name of the Sindarin name of the swamp that was in this area. However, a change from the map of the Third Age is now that at this time the swamp was not yet as large as it became, and the area right outside the Black Gate is grassland, so that the armies of Mordor more easily can march over and down into Ithilien. And when we are looking at Mordor then, well, of course we see that Mount Doom has erupted as the war has just kicked off, and we have the new settlement, the new stronghold of Lugimbat, that will help Mordor to produce more orc scum that they can throw at the enemy to cover the world in darkness. From Mordor we move a bit south into Harad, and here is a terrain change that you can't see any longer or rather the intent is that you shall not see what we have done. In the Third Age map, parts of Harad would or could get snow during winter, and of course that did not felt very appropriate, so we have removed the snow during winter in Harad. I presume that will be appreciated by those who once or twice reacted upon that in Third Age. We'll move quickly back into the Ithilien region, and the first thing of note is of course Minas Ithil, that many know as Minas Morgul from the Third Age, about 2000 years later, counting from this point in time. But at this time Minas Ithil had just been captured by Mordor, but what we are simply looking at is the fact that the veil of Minas Ithil is still green. This edit was made by Emperor of Hell, the previous a previous active member in DCI and a former leader of Divide and Conquer, and this means that when you are fighting on the battle map, the ground will be green too. This was long before the region had been so corrupted that it became barren and lifeless. A bit north, you may notice that Hennet Annun, the hideout of the rangers of the Thilian rangers, is not present. Instead, we have the town of Efel Ithil to represent that Ithilien at this point in time was inhabited by Gondorians and not yet deserted. Close by, you notice that we have the Isle of Caer Andros, but there is no settlement there, nor any fort. The reason for this is, well, first off, there was no settlement on the Isle of Caer Andros, and while we during the Lord of the Rings are informed that the isle was refortified, we have no indication of when was it first fortified or how, to what extent, and thus we chose to not have it fortified at all here, because while Gondor was young and strong at this point in time, it was not as prepared for war as it should be. It also means that hostile armies will have an easier time to get across into Anorian, so that the player who is the Numenorian kingdoms and have to defend these parts of the world will have a bit more of a challenge. As for Minas Anor, as most of course know as Minas Tirith, which it became named in the Third Age after Osgiliath had been abandoned. Of course, during this game, Osgiliath is a large and quite new capital city, so it's a far throw from becoming Minas Tirith yet. Minas Tirith has been slightly moved, repositioned, a bit southeast, so it became more properly positioned, and in the lore in the books, it had an easier time to warding and guarding this patch of land, this narrow land, so that armies could not much further into Gondor. We follow the White Mountains and we reach Dunharrow, this capital of the Men of the Mountains, who are the untrustworthy allies of Gondor at this point in time, of the Numenorians. But the capital of Dunharrow has been slightly moved, not as much as Aglarond, however. Aglarond is Sindarin for the Glittering Caves, so many of you then will directly know that this is, of course, known to most as Helm's Deep, or the proper name is the Hornburg. Aglarond was in the Third Age map found further north over here, but we have moved it a bit southeast to better fit the position in the books. If we move a bit north, of course we see Angrenost, that is Isengard in Sindarin, that was likewise built by the Numenorians. And as you can see here too, it is a green landscape, and well, simply because this are many thousands of years before Sauron came and destroyed the once beautiful settlement and fortress. From Angrenost, and well, we see a little ent over here, by the way. watching the borders of the Fangorn Forest, but we will move all the way down south to the Bay of Belfalas, and we see at the coast the Sylvan settlement of Edelond. Edelond was a haven from which elves could sail to the west, and it was mostly populated by Sylvan elves from Lothlorien. Thus we have made it a Lothlorien settlement. This makes it more fun for the Lothlorien player on one hand, because the Lothlorien player can then interact in the events going on in the southern theater of war, but it's also more fun for the Numenorian player, who gets some aid on occasion from the elves, and certainly more fun for the player who is Harad, who if he make a deep intrusion into Gondor and capture land, may invoke the fury from their elven neighbors, meaning there is some more variation to the opposition in the south. From Edelon we move through the wilderness of Enedwaith, the forests here, and we find the new village of Gobel Minhiriath. This has been added to represent the fact that the kingdom of Anor, here a part of the Numenorian kingdoms, encompassed most of Eriador, including the coastland, but the exception is of course Erunvor, where survivors from the previous wars in Enedwaith had fled and were living at this time. Of course, the wild men of Enedwaith will love nothing more than to take back these parts of their old homeland and kick out the Numenorian occupants. And last but not least, we move into the heartland of the kingdom of Lindon, the Noldor realm, and here we have the little settlement and region of Barad Dûm. Now, Barad Dûm is here to reflect the fact that out of the dwarves who lived in the Erenluin mountains, most of them lived in the south. So most did not live in the north, but most lived down south. And we have handled this in a manner to aid the AI. So without causing too much conflict with law, hopefully, because as you see here, Barad Dûm begins in the hands of the kingdom of Casa Doom. However, this is due to the player being the kingdom of Casa Doom. So if you are playing as the dwarves, you will start with Barad Dûm as a region of yours. However, if you play any other faction, Barad Dûm will begin as a rebel settlement. And this is because, sadly or luckily, the AI of the Medieval 2 games, even if boosted, is not Skynet. It has a tendency to do not very strategic decisions. So we found that it often built a lot of forces in Barad Dûm that it had no need for, and that only drained the economy for the faction. So instead we made it so that if you are not the dwarves, Barad Dûm will instead be open to be captured by other factions. By all accounts, it will belong to the kingdom of Lindon quite soon. But in order to not imply that the elves are holding the dwarves here as poor subjects, we have made it so that Casa Doom is a surface settlement. It's not represented by the typical dwarven settlement, but a human settlement. So that Casa Doom is the town of humans on the surface, while the dwarven population is represented by a dwarven halls building. In this way, even if elves are taking over the town and continue to develop it, the dwarven population will always be represented through their own building. And with that said, we hope you have enjoyed this preview, and we thank you for your interest in this mod that is set at the end of the second age of Middle Earth. Cheers!